Chapter 25. What we found out is that Grayson is old and grizzled. It says so on page 89. So the grizzled, gray, old park hand. So he works for the parks department. Sounds like he takes care of the baseball fields in that area. And it sounds like he just wants somebody to like befriend him, to be close with. And Jeffrey's got no home, so he asks like, hey, maybe you could stay at my place, and like they'll grow this friendship together. And Jeffrey's afraid of letting him down because he's had really bad luck. His parents died. The parents that he lived with as foster, his aunt and uncle, they argued and fought and eventually got to the point where he left them. Then he goes to the Beals house and he eventually leaves their house because of the situation between the East and West End. So he's just kind of done with adults and families at this point. And he changes the subject and kind of joking around with Grayson with Grayson, and asked him, you know, what did you want to be when you grew up? And he wants to be a baseball player. So chapter 25. In the morning, Grayson bought Maniac an Egg McMuffin and a large orange juice. He bought the same thing for himself, so they ate breakfast together in the baseball equipment room. You sent me to bed without a story last night, Maniac kidded. Grayson brushed the yellow speck of egg from his white stubble. I got no stories, I told you. Well, you wanted to be a baseball player. That ain't no story. Well, did you become one? Grayson drank half his orange juice. Just the minors, he muttered. Maniac yelled, the minors? Well, could never make it to the majors. There was a frayed weariness in the old man's words as though they had long since worn out. Grayson, the minors? Man, you must have been pretty good. What position did you play? Grayson said, pitcher. This word, unlike the others, was not worn at all, but fresh and robust. It startled Maniac. It declared, I'm not what you see. I'm not a line-laying, pickup driving, live at the Y, bean-brain park hand. I'm not rickety, whiskered worm chow. I am a pitcher. Maniac had sensed there was something more to the old man. Now he knew what it was. Grayson, what's your first name? The old man fidgeted. Earl, but call me Grayson, like everybody. He looked at the clock on the wall. Hey, I gotta go. Grayson, wait, I'm late for work. You ought to be in school. And he was gone. Earl Grayson. Something tells me there's a lot more to him than just the old man that works at the park. That something is specifically the paragraphs before that said that he was more than just a line laying, pickup driving, live at the Y kind of guy, kind of person. Similar to how people on East and West End don't realize that there's more to the people that live there than just the color of their skin. And what I love about Jeffrey is he's willing to see beyond that. That's a pretty notable characteristic of Jeffrey Magee. Page 92. Grayson returned at noon bearing Zeps and sodas and was not allowed to leave until he told Maniac one story about the minor leagues. By the way, did anybody look up what a Zep is? No? Well, I didn't either. I asked you guys to. Now we're never going to know. But I will tell you that when I was at the store looking for those crimpets last night, in the clearance aisle, there was a pack, like multiple packs of Zeps. I was like, Zeps! Maybe that's it. They were like cleaning rags. I'm like, that's clearly not what they're talking about here. But I was like, how weird is it that they were there when I was looking for the crimpets and the Zeps were there? And I was like, whoa, glitch in the Matrix, man.
You should put that in the glitch.
I should. I took a picture of it. I'll show it to you once we're done reading.
No.
Grayson returned at noon bringing Zeps and sodas and was not allowed to leave until he told Maniac one story about the minor leagues. So he told the kid about his first day in the minors with Bluefield, West Virginia in the Appalachian League, Class D. Can't get no lower than that, he told the kid. That's where you broke in. Don't have D-ball no more. D. You need to finish your ed puzzles now. That wasn't the only thing you need to finish. There's a lot that you got to get done. So open that back up. Get after your ed puzzles. He told me about thumbing a ride to Bluefield. You know what thumbing a ride is? When you need a ride, it's hitchhiking. You don't see that very often. In most places, it's illegal as far as I understand nowadays. Did you just break that? Thumbing a ride is hitchhiking. Used to be the way that people got around back in the day. He told me about thumbing a ride to Bluefield, and when he got there, going up to a gas station attendant and asking him which way to the ballpark. And the gas station man told him, "Sure, but first I gotta ask you something. You're a new ball player, right? Just coming on board?" And Grayson said, "Yep, that's right." And the man said, "I thought so. Well, then you're just gonna want to make your first stop right over there." He pointed across the street. At their restaurant, the Blue Star, you just go right on in there and sit yourself down and tell the waitress you want the biggest steak on the menu. And anything else you want too, because it's all on the house. The Blue Star treats every new rookie to his first meal in town for free. And he gave him a wink. They want your business. Great, thought Grayson. And he did just that. Only when he got up and left, the restaurant owner came running after him down the street, all mad at Grayson for skipping out. And when Grayson told him he was a rookie just picking up his free first meal, the owner got even madder. Seems the gas station man was a real card and liked to welcome dumb rookies with his little practical joke. And that's how it came to be that when the Bluefield Bullets took the field the first day, they did so without the services of their new pitcher, who was in the back of the kitchen of the Blue Star restaurant doing dishes to work off a 16-ounce steak, half a broiled chicken, and 2 pieces of rhubarb pie. That's got to go to Mrs. Houston.
You know, it's got a dot on it, so it's an extra one, I think. Do you know who brought it back?
No, it was mine.
Okay.
I had an extra one.
I'll take
That
it.
you could take that to her. Thank you, ma'am. And that's how it came to be that when the Bluefield Bullets took the field that day, they did so without the services of their new pitcher, who was back in the kitchen of the Blue Star restaurant doing dishes to work off a 16-ounce steak, half a broiled chicken, and 2 pieces of rhubarb pie. After a story like that, Maniac couldn't just stay behind, so he tagged along when Grayson went back to work. He helped the old man raise a new fence around the children's petting farmyard. When the superintendent came around and asked about the kid, Grayson said it was his nephew come to visit for a while. The superintendent, who managed the budget, said, "Well, we can't pay him, you know." And Grayson said, "Fine, no problem." And that was that. From then on, Maniac was on the job with Grayson. Every afternoon they raised fences, they mended fences, hauled stone, patched asphalt, painted, trimmed trees. They ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, sometimes in the equipment room, sometimes at a restaurant. They spent weekends together. All the while, Grayson told baseball stories, insisting all along, "I ain't got no stories." He told about the Appalachian League and the Carolina League and the Pecos Valley League and the Buckeye and the Mexican Leagues and the Paducah Twin Oaks and the Natchez Pelicans and the G-Sub George Browns and the Laredo Lariats, all minor league teams, minor league baseball. How many teams did we just hear?
About 10.
It's a bunch. Appalachian League, Carolina League, Pecos Valley League, Buckeye, Mexican Leagues, the Paducah Twin Oaks, the Natchez Pelicans. What's that tell you about how much baseball he played?
He played a whole.
I mean, he must have played with a bunch of teams and played all around, right? What's that tell you about him as a baseball player?
He moved everywhere.
He did move, but why would he move everywhere?
Because he's a travel player, not a league player.
Travel player, he's in minor leagues, and he's the pitcher. What's that tell you about the pitcher if they're letting him play on all these teams?
He's a really good pitcher.
He must be pretty good.
He can fire.
He didn't make it into the big leagues yet, but he's playing on all these minor league teams, so he must be pretty good. All minor league teams, minor league baseball, sleazy hotels, sleazy buses, sleazy stadiums, sleazy vans, sleazy water buckets, curveballs and bus fumes and dreams. Dreams of the majors. Clean sheets and an umpire at every base. Funny stories, happy stories, sad stories, just plain baseball stories. That be a story being the one about Willie Mays' very last at-bat in the minor leagues before he went up to the New York Giants and immortality. Do you guys know who Willie Mays is?
He's a San Francisco Giant. He plays center field.
He played for the New York Giants. He's a pretty good baseball player. Well, it was old Grayson himself who had last crack at Mays in the 9th inning of a game with Indianapolis. And what did Grayson do? All he did was set the Say Hey Kid down, swinging on 3 straight curveballs. Saddest story was the one about the scout who came down from the Toledo Mud Hens. The Mud Hens had a roster slot, and the scout had a notion to come fill it with a pitcher with a wicked curveball, name of Earl Grayson. This was Grayson's big chance. For the Mud Hens were Class AAA ball one short step from the majors. The night before the game, Grayson spent half of it on his knees by his bed praying. And even 5 minutes before the game in the dugout, he bent down, pretended to tie his shoes, and he closed one eye and prayed, please let me win this ball game, which was something since he had never gone to a church in his life. God must have fainted, he said to Maniac. And indeed, maybe God did, or maybe he only listened to the major leagues because Grayson took the mound and proceeded to pitch the flat-out awfulest game of his life. His curveball wasn't curving, his sinker wasn't sinking, his knuckler wasn't knuckling. The batters were teeing off as if it were the invitation of Normandy Beach. Before the third inning, it was over. The score was 12-0, and Grayson was in the showers. He was 27 years old then, and that was the closest he would ever get to the big show. He hung out for 13 more years, a baseball junkie, winding up in some hot tamale league in Guanajuato, Mexico, until his curveball could no longer bend around so much as a chili pepper, and his fastball was slower than a señorita's answer. He was 40, out of baseball, and for all intents and purposes, out of life. All those years in the game, and all he was fit to do was clean a restroom or sweep a floor or lay a chalk line or far, far down the road tell stories to a wide-eyed, homeless kid. Stop there for today.